Welcome back to the Gone for 10 show. Listen, I'm going to start this week's episode back to saying thank you to obviously the fans that have obviously tuned in over the week. We've got 4.9 thousand views on our previous video. There's a lot of comments directed towards you and your abuse of Tonga, I guess you could put it, but we will get into that a little bit later. We did get 41 subscribers. We're 3 subscribers short of our second goal, which is 150 subscribers. So if you're listening to this, please hit subscribe, help us get to that goal, and help us keep growing, because that's the only way we can keep putting out this content. And seeing results like this definitely brings us back each week and builds our passion. So, Baxter, we're going to jump straight into it. If you listened to the podcast last week, I actually went 4 from 4 in my predictions, margins, and everything.
No, you didn't.
If you listen to the podcast, I did. If you watch my Instagram, different story. But on the podcast, I did go 4 from 4, and I actually got every single margin correct. So I probably should have put a bit of money on that, but we'll jump straight into it. The results, they're up on the screen. We'll kick it off with Australia 48 to Lebanon 4. A game you thought was going to be 1-12. You thought it was going to be a lot closer. Talk to me about this. Obviously, precautionary. James Tedesco did go off in that second half. They said he copped the knock. They said the game was done. There was no point keeping him up there. Talk to me about the half partners. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And moving forward, big battle coming up. Is Australia ready to fire, or has it been an easy draw?
You could say it's been an easy draw, because the only sort of contest we got was the first game against Fiji-ish. I thought Lebanon would put up more of a fight. Put my little bit of bias in there. It was good to see Teddy go off, because that bloke is overrated. Take the unbiased out. You hear pundits talk about, this is Cleary's team. This is Cleary's chance to shine. This is Cleary. Mal Meninga needs to sit down with Cleary and tell him, you have the key to the team, lead him around. What's he done on an international level that he deserves this to be his team? Yes, this is Cherry's last go at it, so why not give him the hurrah, that it is. Let's just say if this is Nathan Cleary and Joey Johns, or Nathan Cleary, Jonathan Thurston, Nathan Cleary, Cooper Cronk, he hasn't done much in the Australian jersey to be given the keys to this team. 5 years ago he wasn't even I don't think he was even playing in NRL 5 years ago when Australia won the World Cup in 2017. So to sit here, that's my only gripe, to hear all these pundits and media outlets saying, that this is his time to shine. Like, okay, if it's his time to shine, then you shouldn't have picked DCE at all. You should have just put Cleary in at the 7 and that was it. But other than that, Haas worked well when Teddy went off. Haas worked well when Teddy was on. Really good game, but that's all I can say about that game.
I think it's definitely. I agree with the pundits. I disagree with the pundits. I think this is Cleary's team now. Comparing Cherry Evans to Andrew Johns, Jonathan Thurston, Cooper Cronk, I think you're absolutely crazy. He's never going to. No.
I was comparing them to Cleary.
Yeah, but you're saying Cleary wouldn't take their spots. That's got nothing to do with DCE, because arguably, in my opinion, Nathan Cleary, not in the Australian jersey, but in his normal Penrith jersey and Manly jersey, respectively, Nathan Cleary's miles clear of Cherry Evans, given the last few years. But I think what Mal's trying to do is going, hey, Cleary, this is your team. Maybe not 100% this year, but moving forward, it's definitely his team, because Cherry Evans will be done.
Definitely.
So you kind of need to let him lead this team. You need to let him have control, because this is a tournament up until now we've breezed by. We knew we were going to breeze by. Who knows? We might breeze past New Zealand. We might breeze past England or Samoa. We don't know. But I think the experience he's going to get, the experience the likes of Matt Burton got, Latrell Mitchells, the Tedescos, all those players, it's a lot of experience. Moving forward, we're going to be a dominant display for years to come. But I guess the funny side of the Australia 48-4 was obviously the newspaper article that came out by the Daily Telegraph, where Nathan Cleary is having problems with small bores. I guess the balls are a bit smaller at the Rugby League World Cup, and that's kind of what they're blaming for the kick in. He said himself it was a disgusting performance, and he's probably going to pass it on to Val Holmes. Whether that happens, whether it doesn't happen, who knows? But Australia,
It needed to happen.
I mean, at 48-4, it doesn't need to happen. If you can put points on like that, I think you could let freaking Latrell Mitchell. I think you could let James Tedesco kick him. We've seen how James Tedesco kicks, and it's not going to make much of a difference if we keep firing. But
That's if he gets on the park.
Australia through to the semi-finals. They will face New Zealand. We'll talk about them soon. But the second game, England 46, PNG 6. A dominant display by England. That man on screen, Dominic Young, didn't score as many tries as people may have thought, but obviously he did move into second. He stays second. Massive shout out to Adokar scoring numerous tries in that game against Lebanon. But talk to me about this one. Home soil, another dominant display. They're coming up against a team in the semi-final, which we'll talk about later, that they absolutely trounced in the group stage. What is the limit for England? Are they favourites to make the final out of this side, arguably? And can they knock off Australia or New Zealand?
Because they're home soil, they are favourites. It's no disrespect to England because this tournament they've been playing out of their skin, and they've proven why they should be called favourites. But look at the opponents they've come up against. They haven't really put much of a. They haven't really tested England, so to say. Like England, to me, it looks like they're just on the training paddock and they're just going through their set plays and working it all out because the amount of ball that they have is just unbelievable, and they're turning it into points and tries and conversion. So it's really good to see from England. PNG, unlucky. Enjoy the flight back home. But what about you?
Well, I mean, I got to show a bit of respect to PNG. They've made it this far. They've played well. A fair few of our viewers in our last video did come from PNG, so I don't want to piss them off too early. So love to PSG, but yeah, again, they should be making the final. I don't think it's going to be as easy when they do take on Samoa in the next game. It was a bunch of young kids when they played them in the pools that didn't have experience. They've now fought, they've gritted, they dealt with that loss, they bounced back. But I think arguably England are very, very heavy favourites. I haven't seen the odds, but I'd argue they're very favourite to make it out of this game, make it into the final. They'll face Australia or New Zealand, but talking about New Zealand, they had a close scare. It was New Zealand 24, Fiji 18. I did catch the second half here. I was at work. You sent me a message and gone, come on, Fiji. And I go, you've just jinxed it when they're up 18-6. Next second, 18-12, 18-all. An absolute robbery with an accidental strip. We'll talk about that. I'll let you have your say. And then obviously they finished it off in the corner in the 79th minute. But Fiji, if there's any Fijians listening right now, lift your head proud. That was a cracking game. You pushed them the whole way against arguably one of the favourites of the tournament. But Baxter, the result, the controversial call, coming up against Australia. What are your thoughts on all of those? And don't go into too much detail because we will talk about those semi-finals shortly.
As you said, PNG fans, PNG players, staff, anybody who this,
Fiji,
or PNG as well as Fiji. Every team that made it this far and the group stages should hold their head up high, regardless of what I say, because you're there, I am not. I did message that Go Fiji message within the first 10 minutes, so it wasn't really half time yet when they were up 18-6. The accidental strip, it wasn't a knock on in my opinion because Fimiao Kikau has made a play at the ball, which is he's going for the ball. There wasn't a second bloke in the tackle in my opinion. So he's played a play at the ball. It's not a knock-on by New Zealand. So, and then it was a knock-on against Fiji, I think it was. And then, so I don't think...
No, it was a penalty. There was two in the tackle. They ruled it a penalty. That's where they went ahead. They went ahead 20-18.
I don't know that that's what they've ruled on, but I don't think it was two in the tackle. I don't think it should have just been... it was New Zealand's ball anyway, because after that accidental strip, whatever you want to call it, Fiji knocked it on anyway. So it was New Zealand ball again. So I think it was just in a better position for New Zealand. So they've challenged it. But Fiji, in my opinion, even though I tipped against them, they should have won. Madge looked a lot less stressed at the end of the game because with the lack of hair that he has on his head, mate, he was going to go completely bald like Shaquille O'Neal, shine it up real good. But New Zealand, they can breathe. This is speed hump, if you call it, in their road to glory. But we've got the hard opponent next.
100%. I think not if, because I am an Australian fan, but I think if you're a New Zealand fan, this is kind of the game you wanted going into the Australians. Now, Australia might enter that match a bit complacent. We've smashed every team we've come up against. We've conceded minimal points. So New Zealand, they've been dominating. They've come in the match here. They've been absolutely battered, pushed to the limits, controversial or not, robbery or not. There needs to be an investigation. But you know what? They overcome it. Joey Manu, he was massive, put on that 300-plus meters, scored the try to bring him back to equalising. It was a cracking game all around. And what we get to see is arguably, given the Dally M's, the best fullback in the world in James Tedesco, take on arguably his replacement in a few years, Joey Manu, who's been absolutely unreal for the Roosters this year and New Zealand. But we'll talk about that soon. We'll jump across to that final game.
Listen, can I start and say all these comments on the last pod saying I hate Tonga, I hate this team, or I don't have any hate. I was just, and I can't really set and explain myself unless I'm here recording with you. My opinion was just that I didn't believe Tonga were going to gel together and they were going to just set the world alight, which they did. You hear the pundits, they were like, Tonga's going to be in the Final Four, this and that. And I was like, well, we can all follow the same stream, the same media outlets and go, this is the Final Four, rah, rah, rah. But in my opinion, I didn't see them in my Final Four, nor did I see them in my getting out of the group stages. Now, I don't have any hate for Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, PNG, Jamaica, Scotland, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, England, whoever else I missed. I have no hate for anybody. Let's just get that out on the ground. I have no hate. It's just my opinion of how I saw the whole squad was going to play out. They proved me wrong. I'm happy to eat the apple pie. I'll make it next pod. I'll come on here with an apple pie. I know, Tony, your girlfriend loves to make an apple crumble, but that's because she sucks at making apple pies. It just mushes up and goes, it's apple crumble. But that's a different subject. But
how did we even get to apple crumble there? We've just gone
because I like an apple pie. I like apple pie.
From you arguably attacking Tongans to apple pie. So I'm not too sure how we got there, but Baxter, talk to me. Talk to me about the result. Talk to me. It was a close game. It was arguably the game of the round.
Yeah, well, this was like I got up for my soccer match at 11 p.m. That finished 5 minutes or 10 minutes before 1 o'clock. I was and ahhing. Do I watch this game live? I saw the haka from both teams and I went, pause. I'm going to bed and I'm going to wake up and watch this with a fresh set of pair of eyes. And oh my God, wasn't this one of, if not the game of the tournament? It came down to conversions. I harp on about Nathan Cleary missing a few conversions. This is a game where if both kickers were on point, it'd be going to extra time for the first time in this tournament. You couldn't separate either team. They both were in a defense. In retrospective, were great. In attack, they were great. But as I say, it comes down to kicking, and you need a kicker who could turn 4 points into 6 points, and that's what got Samoa over the line, regardless of what else you want to say. That man on screen proved pivotal. Anthony Milford proved like a reason why he lit up the game many years ago down in Canberra and moved to Brizzy. You got arguably maybe the third in line for the Roosters fullback role, if not the starting centre role, if someone moves on in Joseph Soali'i. Mate, just these two great teams, two great squads going hammering Tonga at each other, and Samoa come up trumps, and you saw how proud they were. They were screaming and celebrating on the sidelines. Unlucky for Tonga, but respect to them. And I don't have hate for any of the teams, nor the people, because I love and respect all people from around the world, regardless of where you come, religion, race, culture, money, whatever. There's love around for everybody.
Well, I'll tell you what, you might love and respect, but there's a lot of Tongan fans that don't love and respect you. If you go to our comments, you can definitely see that. But I do have a stat for you. I'm going to hold that because there is obviously something else I want to talk about. But you know what? Let's talk about it now. I was going to wait to the preview of those two games, but let's talk about the suspension to Junior Polo. He's banned for that game against England. He is the captain. He is out for a week. So let's talk about that. How big of a loss is that? But also, you brought up Joseph Suali'i. He escapes another suspension for his running style. Again, I'm a Roosters fan. I didn't think he was going to get suspended given that, I guess, no one was injured and given it is such a big stage, they're trying to keep him in the NRL. But arguably, we need to suspend him or we're going to have another incident where I think was it Anthony Tupu that got his jaw broken when he was at Cronulla from the same running style from the Kiwi? Like, what are your thoughts on both of those?
Both needed to be suspended, regardless of how many weeks or whatever you want to, or games or whatever you want to put down. They both needed to be suspended. I'm happy that it was, 1 week suspension for Junior Paulo. If you give Suali'i 1 week, I would sit here and wouldn't jump and scream and say, like that was outrageous. You shouldn't. 1 week was enough. 1 game's enough. This is another thing. I don't know who's making the rules on this. Obviously, this is not governed by the NRL. We don't know who sits behind on the match review committee and looks at each game on an international level. But that's my thoughts on it. Going into next game, Junior Paulo, he'll be missed. He provides a lot, especially you're missing your captain. I'd like to see who their VC captain is for the next game.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I do know, speaking to people, there is a few Australians on the match review committees. There is a few English. There's a bit from almost every single league. But obviously, whoever was on this game, again, maybe took into consideration, did Suali'i injure anyone? No, we're going to let him go. I think it's going to take, again, it sounds bad, but him breaking someone's jaw, breaking someone's rib, doing something to someone before they finally suspend him because, again, you can call it reckless, but if I'm not injuring anyone, am I really doing anything wrong? Because me jumping on a tackle as the second person in, and if I break someone's ribs, there's no difference to what Joseph Suali'i does if he doesn't injure anyone. Paulo, fair suspension. But obviously, it is an interesting one. Baxter, there was something before we do move on that you did want to bring up. We're talking about the previews coming up, but what did you need to bring up?
Just touching on that, it was the Dolphins ex-player, Liam, the last name, again, escapes me. It's been a long day for me. It was his funeral at Redcliffe yesterday, so condolence to his family and anybody who's connected to him in any way. Such a tragedy to lose him so young.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, massive shout out to everyone who's kind of come around the Hampson family, and they've definitely tried to look after that family after the tragic death of Liam. The Dolphins, I thought that was pretty touching, wearing the shirt at their first training session. I thought that was a touching tribute to him. But again, if anyone is suffering with this, or if anyone is suffering with anything, make sure you reach out, have a chat. We're happy to have a discussion. But Baxter, we are here to talk about arguably the pointy end of the Rugby League World Cup. But before we jump into that, let's just have a quick look at the stats. Oh, that's not there. As the stats, as we always do, most goals, 27. It's Nathan Cleary. So we can sit here, we can argue he probably doesn't deserve to be a goal kicker, but the stats, the proof is in the pudding. Big teams have put in big results, yet Nathan Cleary has played one less game and he's ahead of all those players who are converting for fun. Most points, it is Tommy Mackinson. He has overtaken Nathan Cleary. He has 58 points, who's probably going to put a few points on this weekend as well. And obviously, last but not least, it's Mr. Josh Adokar with 11 tries. Your man, Joey Manu, nowhere in sight. And if I'm being completely honest, I hope it stays that way because it means Australia will progress to the finals. But Baxter,